Let's go.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending where you're watching this in the world and when. Welcome to the Iron Viz Qualifier Kickoff event. Next slide, please.
Hello. I am Brittany Rosenau. I was a finalist in last year's Iron Viz competition, so very excited to help kick off this year's. I'm a Tableau Public Ambassador, have a couple of Viz of the Days under my belt, and currently work at Amazon Prime Video and dabble in lots of different data community projects.
And I am Mark Bradbourne, National Solutions Engineer at Tableau, three-time Sue Vizer, including Brittany's Sue Vizer, Team Brittany. And I'm excited to continue my involvement with Iron Viz and excited to be the co-host today for this kickoff event. So let's get into it. So what is Iron Viz? Well, it is the preeminent data visualization competition where either you win or you learn. You cannot lose. We have amazing grand prizes, and I'm really excited to announce those this year because the dollar value has gone up. But you will compete with data rock stars across the globe, and honestly, more importantly, you're just going to have a blast doing it. The qualifier is currently open. Started October 2nd. It runs through October 31st. And the top 3 entries across the globe will have the chance to compete for the grand prizes at Tableau Conference. This year's qualifying theme is love. And if you visit tableau.com/iron-viz, you will find additional contest details. So, incentives for the finals, right? It's not just all about glory, it's about cash. This year, first place is a $15,000 cash prize, with $10,000 going to the nonprofit of your choice and free registration to Tableau Conference. Second place and third place are both $6,000 cash prizes, with $4,000 going to your nonprofit of choice. Amazing that the prizes keep going up. The stakes are high, and it's going to be amazing. I cannot wait.
So this year, the theme is wide open. Theme is love, which I think is great because you get to viz anything you love. If it's something you're passionate about, whether it's health and well-being, your favorite band, your hobbies, personal data, anything that brings you joy, makes your heart full, get cracking, viz what you love. It's very easy to enter. It's free to enter. You just download Tableau Desktop, the public edition, which is always the latest and greatest version of Tableau. If you haven't already, create a free Tableau public profile. Find the data that you're going to viz and go for it. If you have any questions throughout the competition, 10 out of 10 would recommend reaching out to the email listed there, ironviz@tableau.com. I know I pestered the team last year whenever I had questions, wondering if something counted or questions about the deadlines. They are ready and very prompt with answering. So any questions, please reach out to the team there. And of course, how do you win? This year, which I think is fantastic, they've released a more full version of the judging criteria. Previously, if it was your first time entering, all you knew is that your viz was going to be judged on design, analysis, and storytelling. What do these mean? Check out the list here. You've got full explanations for each of the 3 pillars of the judging criteria. So as you're building your viz, you want to think about your design. Is this something that's accessible to readers with different color vision? Is the text big enough to read? Is your analysis going deep on the topic, or are you just kind of showing everyone the data? Are your visuals supporting your story? Do you have a clear story? If you're asking a question, do you answer it at the end? I would definitely recommend screenshotting this, finding this later on the recording, and keeping it handy as a resource as you build your Iron Viz qualifier entry.
I'm so happy for the transparency with the judging criteria. I think that's going to help a lot of people. But to help folks even more, I am super excited that we have 3 of our top 10 qualifiers from last year. We've got Chris Westlake. We've got, oh man, I didn't practice the last name. And we've got Louis Yu. I won't slaughter the last name, Agata, but if you want to give it to us.
Agata Kedrick.
Thank you.
So sorry. Sorry.
So let's do a little Q&A and encourage people why they should really get into Iron Viz. Brittany, hit us with a question.
Yeah, so first off, I'm curious, if from the 3 of you, could you share a little bit about your involvement with Iron Viz? How often have you entered? What makes you want to enter? We'll kick it off with Chris is unmuted, so I'll tag you first.
That was a bad idea. Yeah, so last year was my 4th time entering Iron Viz. I first entered in 2020, largely because I'd recently discovered Tableau. It was a new tool, and there wasn't a lot else to do with my free time. So I saw Iron Viz as a great way to develop my skills and look at a kind of longer, larger project than something like a Makeover Monday, and I was in control of the topic, and it was just a great way to get to know Tableau a bit more.
Cool.
I can jump in next. I've entered twice. The first time was also in 2020. I was really involved in the Tableau community that year. I did every single Makeover Monday. And so it just seemed like a great idea to, enter, kind of push myself. Definitely did not plan on winning or anything like that, but I figured participating would help me kind of push me to produce a high quality Viz, and definitely thought I would learn something along the way. And then the second time was in 2023.
And Louis.
All right, so I've entered Iron Viz for 3 consecutive years, and all 3 of them are of very distinct styles and visualization. And this is essentially how I approach Iron Viz, as a way to wrap up my entire years of learnings and inspiration in a narrative approach, because that's what data viz is about, using data to tell a story.
Awesome. So 2 questions here. So what are your thoughts on this year's feeder theme, which is love? And what was the first thing that came to mind? And then, are you going to be entering this year? Louis, let's start with you.
Cool. So I love topics that tap into our passion, because that's where you have a wealth of knowledge you can use to tell a really compelling story. For me, what drives me in life would probably be family, Marvel, coffee, and video games in no particular order. So I'll surely go with something along that pillars. But having said that, I'm super excited to see what everyone comes out with this year. But unfortunately, I will not be joining, because I will be helping out with the judging committee.
Awesome. Chris, go ahead.
I love this topic as well. I think it's brilliant to give people that freedom to viz something that they're really passionate about. I always find that vizzing what you love is the best way to viz. It's so much easier to get stuck into a topic. I kind of did that last year. One of my big passions is rugby. So when I saw it, the first thing I thought was, I cannot do another rugby viz. So planning to enter with something not sport related.
Excellent. Agata.
So it's definitely a really open-ended theme, which can almost make it challenging to pick a topic. But I'm really excited to see the submissions. I feel like The Vizes will be very personal and close to people's hearts, which can definitely make for wonderful storytelling. Oh, and as far as me participating, I don't think I'm going to do it this year. Just don't have a Viz idea. So
Not yet.
yeah.
Not yet.
Unless I come up with one soon.
It's embarrassing looking back how much of my Viz I did last year within like the last week before submissions. With that said, I know one of the slogans for Iron Viz is win or learn. You cannot lose, which I fully agree with. We'll start with you again, Agata. What's a thing or two that you've learned through participating in Iron Viz?
Definitely so much. So my first Iron Viz entry was all floating. And then at some point along the process, I had to resize my dashboard. And that was a terrible, terrible experience. And from then on, I've definitely been team container. My Wordle Viz, my most recent Iron Viz entry is all vertical and horizontal containers. I've learned to love them. But honestly, I think it would be hard not to learn something when participating in Iron Viz, whether it's how to make your Viz more accessible or something new about design that you pick up along the way, or how to create a better story. And definitely all those technical skills, but you'll definitely learn something new.
Team container all the way. How about you, Chris?
Well, I have always floated and always will float. I'm just not a fan of containers. The thing that I've learned the most from Iron Viz is kind of on the data prep side of it, and I think learning a lot of patience around that is really important. If you go out on a topic without having data just given to you, it takes a long time to find the right data and enough of it to build something that's suitable for Iron Viz.
Brittany, what did you learn?
I learned, because last year was my third time entering, I learned to limit my color palette because my first entry, I had like an 8-color color palette scheme. And that was really hard to try and do well and end up with the result that I liked. So I wanted to stick to something a little more simple. And then I also used it as an excuse to learn how to do plum pudding charts, because that's not something I could normally get away with in a business setting, but it fit the story I was trying to tell. So
excellent.
Jumped on that.
I realized I skipped Lewis. Lewis, what did you learn?
No worries. I like to think that I've evolved in my data viz style, and I used to use a lot of images as centerpieces, just like the very first Iron Viz I did on the Japan gaming habits. But over the years, I've learned to use images more strategically to enhance the data story rather than having it take the center stage.
Yeah, all amazing things, and I'm sure it's just scratching the surface of things that you've discovered through the process. So where do you go for inspiration when you're starting your Iron Viz? Agata, let's start with you.
It definitely depends. I always keep an eye out on Tableau Public. So for my Wordle entry, I had remembered, I knew I wanted to do something circular. Not really sure why, but just kind of love circular charts, maybe because I don't get to use them in a business setting. And I remembered Lindsay Petzendahl's sunburst chart, how gorgeous Viz she did with a sunburst chart. So kind of going back to Vizes I had seen in the past, which so it helps to kind of keep an eye on Tableau Public and keep an eye on new Vizes coming out. Definitely checking out past Iron Viz entries is a good place to start also. And then for design ideas, I like to check out different websites like Dribble, Pinterest, and Behance. Just kind of get some ideas out there to kind of make it, I don't know, to try something new in the design.
What was the first one you mentioned?
Dribble.
Dribble. I don't know that one.
It's kind of like a Pinterest, but for design ideas.
Got to make a note of that.
3 B's in the middle there.
All right. Lewis, how about you?
I'm just gonna add another vote for Tableau Public, because like with over 7 million visitors, you'll be bound to find something that inspires you. But on the flip side, I do get a lot of inspiration from video games. I always love a game with a great story, and you'll find that game designers these days put a lot of effort optimizing and reducing the amount of visual clunk so that you as the audience can really take in the story. And there's a lot of similarities to how we approach data viz in general too.
Awesome. And Chris, how about you? Where are you getting your inspiration?
Can I say Tableau Public too?
You sure can. It's almost like a planted question.
Never. Other than that, I found it's really useful to Google your topic with the word infographic at the end. You kind of get loads of visuals around a similar kind of vein as what you're looking for, and you can see what works for that topic that's kind of specific to the topic itself.
Awesome.
Well, if folks make it to stage, there's 20 minutes to create a viz, but luckily during qualifiers, you get a lot more time. I'm wondering for the three of you, how much time have you spent on feeder vizzes in the past, and would you do something different in those vizzing processes? I'll throw it to Chris right away.
Cool. So last year I did something absolutely terrible and started off on one idea. It got to a complete dead end, and I scrapped it the Wednesday before the Monday deadline.
Oh my goodness.
So I built the whole thing on one very, very busy weekend. Took maybe 30 to 40 hours. Not much sleep, but yeah, sometimes the pressure gets you through. I would definitely do that again.
Do that again.
Yeah. Not recommended.
So I wish I knew the number of hours, but part of me kind of doesn't want to know. So I did not keep track. I mean, aside from collecting data and all that stuff, yeah, it's can definitely add up. But I feel like with my Wordle Viz, it actually kind of came together a lot faster than I almost expected it to. I had the idea for the Viz before the theme was announced, so it was already kind of cooking in there, and so it just kind of came together pretty fast.
Yeah, my first Iron Viz entry, I actually had used a Viz from Iron Quest as kind of like a jumping point for my qualifier entry, and that definitely saved some time that year. How about you, Lewis?
I would say I spend maybe 5 to 10 hours every week leading to the submission date, because that's me, because I was jumping from ideas to ideas. Looking back, I think the one advice I would give to all participants is, spend a day or two ideating your thoughts into a list, and maybe have 1 or 2 points on what the story you're trying to tell for each idea. Then spend another day not thinking about it, and then come back and choose the one that you feel it's most interesting and feasible in terms of getting the data. But don't go down the same path as me, where you are trying to search for your data and choose your topic at the same time. But at the end of the day, you can still tell a great story with limited data, because you still have more knowledge on that topic than the average folks.
And sort of a follow-up to that question, I know I see some of my feedback committee from the qualifier round on the call today. Last year or prior years, did you get outside feedback, or did you kind of keep what you were working on a secret till the end? Lewis, we'll start off with you.
So funny thing is, as co-hosts of games like this, Tina and I were extremely stressed over the topic last year, because the theme was games. And we felt this invisible, immense pressure to not only join Iron Viz, but also it had to be something incredible, being the community project leaders. Will was spared for that because he won last year and went on to be the judge. So Tina and I bounced through so many topics together and definitely had each other's back in everything from ideation to design.
That's awesome. Agata, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely got feedback. So you mentioned the Iron Viz Feedback Initiative, I think. So Sarah Bartlett started that a few years ago, and I participated in it last year. Definitely super helpful. I think it's always great to get feedback, even to like fix spelling errors and things like that, just to get somebody else's perspective, I think is really helpful.
I definitely agree. Getting my Viz to eyes of people that knew Tableau but also didn't know Tableau at all was really helpful during my process. Chris, I know you were working on a time crunch. Did that give you opportunity to get some feedback rounds in there?
Loads of opportunity. Just share it with everyone that you know. Kind of data people are great because they'll be able to advise from a kind of more technical perspective, but also just friends who have no idea about data. If they can look at a chart and understand the story that you're trying to tell, you're probably doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, say I did my first feeder I ever did was 2016, and I actually just put a random call out on Twitter and said, "Does anybody want to give me feedback on my Viz?" And Sarah Bartlett was one of the folks that answered the call, so. I feel like I was the inspiration around, all the things she does, all the wonderful things she does around Iron Viz and Iron Quest. So joking, of course. But yeah, feedback's awesome. So other than Tableau Public and, with Pinterest, Dribble, are there any other really good resources that have proved to be really valuable as you've built your Viz? Lewis, let's start with you.
There are a few resources that I swear by with every Viz that I built, not just for Iron Viz. And there are Adobe Color for testing color accessibility, Now Project for icons, and building your own mood board. I think a mood board is pretty useful because it's a collection of images that you research and put together in a collage that has things like design, color, typography, basically anything you're inspired from or for the particular topic that you've selected. And I find that it's extremely grounding to have this so that you don't stray into the black hole of what ifs.
Very cool. Agata, how about you?
Yeah, those are all great. And then for anything Tableau related, there's so many resources out there. So for my sunburst chart, Lindsay Betzendel had a blog about how she did hers. So that was super helpful. And then Ken Flairledge had a template available. That's super specific to the Viz I created. But, if there's anything Tableau-wise you don't know how to do, I feel like if you Google it, you are like 99% likely to find it out there.
And Chris, what about you?
Not much to add other than Googling. Get yourself to Tableau user groups as well, kind of throughout the year. That's hugely helpful. There's quite a big section at the bottom of my Iron Viz from last year. It's kind of a match timeline, which was all built using map layers, which I would have had no idea how to do without a user group recording. So yeah, just leverage the community in any way that you can.
Well, we all know the pillars of judging are storytelling, analysis, and design. For all of you top entrants last year, is there anything in particular that you think made your Viz stand out and helped you get into those top ranks? Chris, we'll start with you.
That is quite a hard question. The storytelling part of it, I'm told, was really good for mine. It kind of built up the emotion as you read through the Viz. You could feel the tension building as you kind of followed the story through. And I think that was a huge part of it. Also, design, kind of keeping it simple and consistent throughout. Yeah.
Yeah, it can definitely be tempting to put everything on the page. So keeping the design, supporting your story as you go through is definitely a top tip. How about you, Lewis?
So I've always told a story from my perspective, and while a personal touch is always interesting, it's very easy to fall into the trap of assuming what your intended audience knows and start to cut corners in visual cues. So last year, I actually told a story from my wife's perspective because she's a huge fan of Dragon Age. And it really made me revisit on how I enable accessibility to non-data folks, which I felt was probably one of the key factors of making top 15. So I guess for all Iron Viz participants, that's another advice for you. Always keep your audience in mind when you're building a Viz.
Yeah, especially with the theme of love. If you're going to be visiting something that you're very passionate about, you have to keep in mind your audience might be completely new to the topic. So you might have to explain things that might seem obvious to you, but are completely fresh for whoever's looking at your viz. And Agata, I know yours was I played a lot of Wordle that year, so I definitely enjoyed it. It was a topic I was familiar with, but what do you think helped your viz stand out last year?
I think it was the storytelling. One of the things I did, which I hadn't always done in Viz's prior, was, I explored the data a little bit, but before coming up with any graphs or charts, I sat down away from my computer and kind of planned the story I was going to tell, and then chose the visualizations after that, which is different than what I've done in the past. So I think that really helped to making sure that the visualizations support your story, and not kind of trying to fit a story around the visualizations that you've created.
All right. So, Lewis, I know you're judging this year, so you're not entering. Chris and Agata, I think I can't remember if you're on the fence or you're not doing it because of time. But what is the one thing that you would say to somebody who might be on the fence about entering and they're not sure? What's the motivational speaker pitch line to get people to participate in Iron Viz? Agata, let's start with you.
Okay. So I think a lot of people worry about, putting in the time and effort and kind of showcasing their work and putting themselves out there. But the worst thing that can happen is that you might learn something, or you might end up on that stage, which that's okay. So, just go for it. It's definitely a great learning opportunity. And yeah, you'll have something awesome to showcase afterwards.
Awesome. Chris?
I think my number one tip would be to have fun with it. If you're not enjoying it, you're almost doing it wrong and putting too much pressure on yourself. If you've made it to this point of joining this call, you probably quite like Tableau, and being able to pick a topic that you like, it should be a really fun thing to spend your time on over the next few weeks. So go for it.
Awesome. Lewis, Judge Lewis, what do you have to say?
Well, I would have loved to participate with this year's team, but I've already agreed to be part of the judging committee, so I can't back up my words. But I think it's a really great opportunity to kind of explore something that you wouldn't do in work. I built a lot of dashboards in work, but none of that are exciting or kind of feeds the passion that I have for data viz. But a topic like love for Iron Viz really, digs deep into what you enjoy, and what many people and I preach is, you gotta viz what you love, so that you can come out with a great story and for Iron Viz, I would say.
Awesome. All right. I'd enter if I could, but I guess I'm exempt. All right. I think that kind of wraps our panel. We're in QA. If you got questions, you can drop them in the QA box, and either myself or Brittany or the panel, happy to jump in on that. So fire away Audience. No questions. We've done amazing, people. We've crushed it. It's the greatest feeder kickoff ever. Oh,
Ooh.
something in the chat. Here we go. Where can we find data for our Viz? Monica, that is a fantastic question. It depends what you love, I guess, but a lot of, I think, the love, or like, what was it, 2021, there was Joy, which was another fantastic open topic. A lot of people collected their own data, but there's a shocking amount of data that is out there. If you Google, for certain data sets, you will find stuff. I found a lot of stuff on Wikipedia, actually. One of my favorite bands is Iron Maiden, and I found a whole bunch of like Iron Maiden data out there. So you just Google is your best friend, honestly. Any other resources from the panel or Brittany as far as where we can find data?
I know I used Wikipedia last year as my launching point because I needed the list of games that had won a certain competition. So I started with that, and then that led me down the rabbit hole of, okay, here I can find this other data to flesh out parts of my story. Collecting data yourself is great. Google is your best friend. Data.world is another great resource for data sets submitted by other folks. And I think at the end we've got a link to how to find free data sets to use.
Yeah. Alyssa, what was the email address for Iron Viz questions? There's a question about how do we contact you if there's more questions. I think it's ironviz@salesforce.com or.
She posted it in the chat. It looks like ironviz@tableau.com.
Tableau.com. Perfect. Thank you. Question around, do you think you have to have prior visualizations in Tableau Public? Absolutely not. Don't think about anybody else's portfolio or what they've got in there. If your Iron Viz feeder is your first Viz, kick ass. Awesome. You go. Like, by all means.
I checked last year, and there was at least 10 folks, I think, that their Iron Viz entry was their first entry on Tableau Public.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the only thing being judged is what you enter. So nobody's looking at your profile. So, all right. So let's see. More questions. If there's what?
Oh, sorry. There was a question earlier whether you could join in a group of 2 to 3.
Oh, no, it is a solo competition, unfortunately. Although that's an interesting thing for maybe like a user group to do like teamed Viz competitions. But yeah, Iron Viz is a solo competition.
I see a question from Annabelle about preferred format. I know for myself, last year I started going horizontal and then switched to vertical. But I'll ask the panel. I know there's the format you do it is not part of the judging criteria, but does the panel have any advice for what kind of format to put your Viz?
I think about your users and how they're going to be viewing it. I think horizontal is great. I've always stayed away from it because it's a lot harder to scroll left to right than top to bottom. But yeah, do what works for you. Left to right Vizes have been amazing, and it's a really great format if it works for the story.
All right. Quick question. Can you use data from Kaggle? Absolutely. I think any data is fair game as long as it is publicly available. Can you remake your own Viz for participating in Iron Viz? That one I'm not sure on.
That sounds like a great question for ironviz@tableau.com.
I think so.
And then I know previous folks have like used a Viz they've done before as like a starter and then expanded it for Iron Viz, but I think the spirit of the competition is that you're entering work that you've done this month.
Yeah. And then the question around Figma usage. or any kind of background information or background images. I've seen lots of different things with Figma. Brittany, did you use Figma or anything like that in your Viz? I can't remember.
I didn't use Figma. I ended up drawing / tracing some of my own images. I would definitely encourage folks to read the fine print, because the too long didn't read version is most of your entries should be built in Tableau, especially as far as the analysis goes. And with images, you want to be careful that you're not using anything that's copyrighted. So other than that, as long as you've got copyright, fair use for your images, make sure your image supports your story. You don't want to accidentally disqualify yourself by using someone's logo that you didn't get permission for.
Yeah.
There was actually a great question that followed up on that. I think he probably meant images generated using ChatGPT, like generative AI, considered copyright free.
Oh.
That's a touchy subject.
Beyond my pay grade.
I think that is an ironviz@tableau.com question for our judges, for the administrators of the competition. Because it's above my pay grade too. Here's a really interesting question. Are very interactive Vizes okay, or are they less accepted as a Viz method for Iron Viz? I'm thinking about across all of the entries that I've seen, and most of them are what I would classify as surface level Vizes, where it's all of the story is kind of laid out. Because if you think about like when you present on stage, you've got a minute or 5 minutes or whatever it is to talk through your Viz, and you're not going to be able to click and be really interactive to get to that story. So I would be really apprehensive, is probably not the right word, but I'd be really apprehensive about doing like something that's really, really interactive.
Just going off of that, if you are going to include interactivity, just keep in mind how your audiences are going to be interacting with it. For the qualifiers, it's probably going to be on a desktop computer. And if you want them to interact with it, you're going to need to be very explicit and provide instructions for how you want them to interact, because you don't want a key part of your story hiding behind something that someone should have clicked on, but they didn't realize they needed to.
All right, and then someone has asked what the judging criteria is, and I will famously use my W hand motion. It's analysis, it's design, and it's storytelling, and that gives you the W. Lots of good questions. Good resources for images. Pixabay has a bunch of Creative Commons imagery that you can use. I'm a big fan of the Noun project if you're looking for icons. That's a subscription worth the money. Wikipedia Commons or Wikimedia Commons, Nicole Mark has just thrown out. So yeah, and as long as it's copyright free, Creative Commons use, you should be good to go.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of questions about, arrows and things like that generated in PowerPoint. Like those are.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using Unicode or ASCII, that's fine. So, all right.
Great questions.
Yeah, fantastic questions. Is there one more I see? No. Okay. I think we are golden. All right. Well, thank you for coming to the kickoff. I look forward to seeing all of the Vizes starting to hit Tableau Public. It's going to be amazing. We do have a list of resources that I think will be available after the call. I think Alyssa, how is that going to get shared out? Yeah, so we've got the Iron Viz Gallery, we've got the Feedback Initiative, Beginner's Guide to Tableau Public, how to create a compelling qualifier, and then how to find data. So a lot of great resources there. And I will always encourage you, if you've got questions, throw it out on on X, formerly known as Twitter. Throw it out on LinkedIn. Throw it out on Reddit. The Data Fam is everywhere, and they are always happy to help point you in a direction.
And a big thanks to our panelists as well. I know everyone's coming in from very different time zones today, so.
Yes. So yeah, let's get to Vizing, shall we? Slides and event recording will be available through Tableau on the YouTube channel and on the event page that you registered. Thank you, Alyssa. Entries are due October 31st, so let's get Vizing, people. Until we meet
Win or
again.
learn, you can't lose.
That is right. Thank you, Brittany. Brittany, thank you for co-hosting with me. I appreciate it. Panel, thank you so much. I love you all. Appreciate your time today. And with that, I think we'll just sign off, shall we?
Bye. Thanks.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.